Hi, this is Lauren Hollows for NOI Education Services, and today I am here with the topic, my trainers won't use our assessment tools, now what? So this is pretty common. We see this quite a lot, either trainers not wanting to use assessment tools, not using assessment tools correctly, not following the instructions in the assessment tools. And so I think there's a couple of processes that it's worthwhile going through if this is one of the situations that you or your RTO are struggling with. So the very first question that I'm going to ask is whether or not your tools actually have clear instructions with them. If you've purchased a lot of off-the-shelf assessment tools that haven't been contextualized, the instructions on them can actually be really vague and very generic. They can be very unclear in their nature, and so it's actually, sometimes it is the fact that the tool actually doesn't describe what tangibly needs to be done. And while a lot of trainers, yes, they have their TAE, yes, they may have done the design and develop assessment tools unit, a lot of them still actually can look at an assessment tool and really not understand what the assessment tool is asking and what evidence they are supposed to be collecting for that. So if you are buying off-the-shelf assessment tools and you have not taken any steps to contextualize them, that could be the first issue, is that there is actually not any clear instructions as to what needs to be done within the tool. Okay. Now, obviously, theory assessment, that's generally not going to be the issue. What we're going to be talking about here is going to be talking about how we collect evidence of the practical skills of the performance evidence. Okay. So very first question, are there actually any instructions on there? Are the instructions at all clear is the first question you need to be asking. The second question I would be asking is are the tools super compliant, but not usable? Okay. And the reason why I say this is I have seen tools where you could capture evidence, where you could compliantly capture evidence. However, it would require, for example, the trainer to write 27,000 comments, one against it, and it's basically like a mapping guide where the trainer's got to write a comment against every single performance criteria and come up with the context of what that assessment looks like. And so depending on your delivery model, I mean, if you're delivering short courses in the classroom, if you're delivering to international students, if you're delivering to large groups of job seekers, has your assessment tool been designed in such a way that it is impossible for the trainers to actually use it? Okay. And this is a problem that we do see. We'll see tools that have been purchased and the tools are technically compliant. It's just that they are really not usable from the perspective of understanding what a trainer is required to do in a classroom, signing off 20 students, trying to observe 15 students at a time. It's not possible for them to actually collect the evidence based on the way the tool is designed. Not all tools are designed in the same way. A tool cannot be designed to be delivered equally to a classroom of 15 students who don't have any workplace experience, also then be used to collect evidence against an individual student who's in the workplace, who's working as a trainee or an apprentice. So tools do need to be contextualized. And if we don't contextualize them in the correct way, sometimes we fall into this trap of the tools being overly compliant, but not being usable. We did an audit last month where we audited some tools. We ultimately found that the tools were compliant. They were from another provider. But when it came to the practical application of those tools, none of the tools were being used correctly. And the actual completion rate in the tools was sitting around about 3%. And the reason for that was every single one of the tools had been built with two versions of that tool within the same form, right? So there was two versions. There was one version for students who were doing the assessment in the workplace, and there was one version for the students who were doing it in a simulated version, but it was all together in the same tool. And what it meant was that the tool ended up being about 180 pages, I think, per unit. And so the students were getting to it being completely overwhelmed, not understanding what they needed to do and how they needed to do it. And so therefore the completion rate on the units was just very, very, very low. And the trainers were clearly not able then to explain how the tool should be used. So that when the students came to the practical assessment, that was just a stopping point for the vast majority of students. And as I said, only like, 1 in 35 students was actually going through to completion on those assessment tools. So first two things, as we said, is the assessment tool really clear? Does it have very clear instructions? And, is it able to allow the trainer to collect evidence based on the delivery mode that the trainer is delivering through? Now, let's say you do have an assessment tool that is clear, it's compliant, it's good quality, you've got 7 trainers and 3 of them or 4 of them are completing it without any problems, and there's just 2 of them that just just will not tick it correctly, they're crossing things out, then that becomes a PD issue. Okay. And so then it's working with the trainers to actually help them understand the assessment tools, and then giving them an opportunity to make sure that, they understand what the process is that they have to follow and how they have to go about completing the assessments, and then managing that process individually per trainer. Now, a lot of this does come down to how you organize how your RTO runs. Point 1, I never allow my trainers to actually sign off units of competency. So the trainers sign off the actual assessment tool, they sign off the unit of competency, but they don't result it in the student management system. So I do, obviously trainers sign off the unit of competency, they don't ever result it in the student management system. So in my RTOs, the assessment tool gets signed off by the trainer, it goes through to admin does the check of it, and then it gets resulted in the system. Now, the best way that I believe to be able to do that is where you have admin that are responsible for looking after specific trainers, because what that's going to allow the admin to do is to get used to the style of what the trainer is. They'll get to know what the trainer is good at and what the trainer is not good at, and then they can work with the training coordinator or the RTO manager or the training manager to make sure that everything is being submitted to the same standard. Okay, they are the first line of defense from a gatekeeper perspective. And so that's generally how I would do it. So step 1 is does the tool actually have clear assessment instructions? Step 2, is the tool actually usable for what it is? And then step 3, do we need to do some professional development with our trainers and assessors? I've never gotten to a point where it's anything other than that. When you do get to that point, that's generally a time for performance management and termination. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. First, we're looking inwards, and then we're looking to professional development. I hope you guys have found this helpful. If you disagree, by all means, feel free to do so, but do so respectfully. In the comment section, if you do have any comments, by all means, drop them below, and I will do my best to respond to them. I hope you guys found this helpful. My name is Lauren Hollows for NOI Education Services.